Review code provided by Capcom. Thanks. Again.
Doesn't get much better than this.
I love food and stuff. It's where I buy all of my food. And most of my stuff.
Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster has finally hit PC and consoles, first digitally on September 19th, same day as Frank's visit to Willamette. That's cute. A deluxe remaster, as they call it, with the intent to overhaul the graphical style while keeping the original gameplay and design intact as much as they could, while adding new options and various quality of life enhancements. This is also the first project in a good while where developers are recreating a game I already consider an all-time favorite. I'm talking top 5 GOATs, y'all. So then that begs the question, how did they do with this reintroduction to the original Dead Rising experience? That's what I want to talk about today in my review of Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. I've already given my first-hand impressions back in August, but now I want to expand my thoughts even more and talk about the entire experience in greater detail. It's also worth emphasizing that this is the first Dead Rising console game that would not be created under the now defunct Vancouver team since 2009. Thinking about it, the last time they reiterated Dead Rising 1, which was a Wii exclusive, it was also by a different team, TOS. Only Eastern-based studios have worked on Dead Rising 1-ish projects. That's weird. With the help of Neobard's Entertainment, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster almost precisely hits the line between two large factions of how I categorize the more passable remakes of old video games. I previously made a video discussing my thoughts on remakes of video games and how the ones I tend to respect more feel closer to a new experience that happens to use the same setting. Meanwhile, those that just try to redo the original game but with new supercharged graphics tend to lose my interest quickly. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is just in the middle of that. There's not enough new stuff for me to call it a genuinely unique remake, and not enough has remained the same for me to call it an expensive rehash. Like I've said before, it makes more sense to me why they refrained from using the word remake describing this project as I analyze it. To summarize my early impressions video, even for the beginning of the game, it felt too easy to make progress and defeat the biggest threats thus far. The new graphics are really nice, but part of me feels like they could have done better with the game's artistry. I like that they tried to make the place look less clean and tidy, kind of makes the atmosphere more believable. However, the environment tends to feel lacking, especially compared to the bright colors of the original game. It's funny how both of these approaches have their stronger suits. However, again, not a fan of how poorly lit a lot of these areas are, to the point where you're essentially punished for arriving at certain scenarios too early or too late. Taking a break from the game, I tried modern controls again and just can't get used to it. There's definitely a lot of traditional and, let's be honest, more rational controller mappings for this scheme, but you're not going to chisel away nearly 20 years of me playing the original Dead Rising. With that said, classic controls all the way. And lastly, the new voice actors are pretty underwhelming compared to the original, but we'll get into that later.
Zombies. I still can't believe all this, you know? Seems so unreal.
So, those are my thoughts of playing the first few hours of the main campaign back in August. Now I've had the full experience. Well, at least the main story and a bit of the extra Infinity mode. I won't go into detail regarding the main story since it returns virtually unchanged. It's a tale I already deeply respect and consider it one of the best I've ever witnessed in a video game. I understand this will be a lot of people's first time experiencing Dead Rising as a whole, so I don't feel the need to really emphasize on the story besides show off some great scenes here and there.
This, my friend, is hell.
Even if I wish some of the acting was better, and even if a couple bits of dialogue are different, I still consider this a great way to experience that story that's chock full of robust, unique characters. I do plan to properly analyze these elements, but that'll have to wait for another time. The original Dead Rising was a pretty demanding game, more or less. If you don't know certain exploits, the stress hits you early on, especially when it comes to completing side objectives and helping survivors you'll come across. The original game became infamous for its survivor AI being hard to work with, as well as its strict global timer. Not only does the game do its best making you feel bad for any survivors you failed to save, but those timers going down and down is nothing if not panic-inducing. And going for the big PP makes it even more encouraging just to see if you can clear them all out and get the survivors to your home base in one piece. For the Deluxe Remaster, these stakes and stress-inducing scenarios have been noticeably deflated in a sense. The timer is just as strict as before, however they alleviate the pressure by giving the survivor AI more agency and faster reactions. They still get stuck on zombie grabs from time to time, and some of them even still have the knack of stopping for a cry, "God damn it, Aaron!" But they're generally faster, their paths aren't as faulty, and they have a lot more health. No joke, I was trying to escort a bunch of survivors and they all got ran over by a Humvee like 4 times while the gunner was blasting away at me, and we still all got to the security room safe and sound. Time remains a big factor, and the game makes it more clear how much you have left with its new UI and meters. So the challenge is more about remembering where some of these areas are, how to approach the survivors, and explore them all, as there are stragglers that you are never notified about, just like before. In fact, everything regarding the survivors, their in-game habits, and their requests seem to be unchanged. Although, sometimes even a separate survivor will tip you off about an unknown straggler.
I saw someone just binging on a bunch of booze. I guess I get it in circumstances.
Come on!
So, those are the most stressful aspects of the games, but that's not all. There's, most renowned, exploring the mall's insides and exporting the zombies' insides. Regarding the classic control setup, all the executions are the same, but the dodge roll has definitely been reworked, as Frank no longer spontaneously performs it through a sensitive input read like in the original. For those that may not be aware, this was a known issue since the original version on Xbox 360, where Frank would just do it in the middle of you walking, and this was never changed for any of the ports. Now, you have to lean into the execution more, which is good. The available moveset expands the more you level up, and this system is great to drip feed you abilities throughout your campaign run. However, the randomization of what you earn through leveling up seems even more strict now. I've done about 4 runs at this point, and there's a lot of moves I remember getting pretty early on in the original, but never showed up before I hit level 25 or so in this new version. Like the knee drop. It's an amazing move to get early, but it never happens in Deluxe Remaster. At least not for me. This would be more of a problem if they didn't ease up on the challenge. The zombies aren't as aggressive, and they don't gnaw away at your health as easily. This change creates a paradigm shift in how challenging the game can be, and that's a bit disappointing, as they're supposed to be the game's biggest obstacles. They're not the toughest individual threats, of course, but their power in numbers isn't enough if they're not going to put up a good fight. And we haven't even gotten into the Psychopath boss fights, which are also noticeably easier. Except for Adam the Clown, who does not leave himself open as often anymore. It could just be a case of bad RNG, but I recall he used to do his balloon trick very often in the original, which left him the most open for punishment if you had a gun. He rarely does it now. As for the rest of the bosses, I noticed they're generally slower and less responsive. It's all little things, like how Cletus doesn't fire his shotgun as quickly anymore, and the shotgun itself has less range, so he's way easier to defeat. Same for Steven, and even Cliff isn't as fast with his reactions anymore. This is something I noticed when playing the early build, and it doesn't seem like much has changed since then. Not that I really expected that. They definitely have some sort of damage scaling applied, as they do not die as quickly from old strats, except this one. But still, it isn't enough to keep the challenge there. I kind of wish there was a way to play this Deluxe Remaster in a way that's even closer to the original game's sense of challenge. I say this because it's clear these were deliberate choices to make it different from the original game, and while that goes against the philosophy of this Deluxe Remaster, they did so for the sake of making this version generally more accessible. I'd ask for an original game difficulty setting, but I'm sure that would take a lot of time and resources, so whatever. Frank's camera is considerably overpowered now. Quick snaps of zombie groups grant you huge PP that go beyond the maximum experience you could have gotten from the original Dead Rising's camera function. Besides generally higher points per shot, another reason that's the case is the camera is now able to capture way more tags than in the original game. I feel like people didn't really care to take photos when playing the original Dead Rising, so kind of hope this is a means for people to whip that shutter bug out much more often, as it's now even more fun and gratifying than ever before.
Perfect.
Driving vehicles feels a lot easier than in the original game. Good little changes like better turning and letting you adjust the camera while you're driving. The e-brake is insanely sharp though. I couldn't get the hang of getting good drift turns. Not that you'll be driving too much in this game, except for, Speaking further about the changes, I mentioned how the survivors are generally more involved and how they even throw phrases and tips while in your company.
Hey, I found something that's sure to go viral on social media.
This is kind of neat, but also distracting. I don't mind them talking during escorts or whatever, but throwing out random tips like they're in the Star Fox crew is just bizarre to me. What made the original game's NPCs so great, and to be frank, the second and third installments didn't do a bad job following this up, is how unique and human all of the survivors felt. They all had their own personalities expressed through these interactions, and they didn't even need full-on voice acting to present that. Adding this new aspect makes them feel a little less human and more robotic, like regular video game NPCs.
Hey Frank, look at that. Looks like a cool photo op, no?
For context, this is a mother that witnessed zombies eating her baby alive the same day. I think they should only say things that actually align with their personalities. These are all newly written material for this deluxe remaster, so I wish they could have put a better effort. The core gameplay is still really good though. Messing around with zombies and exploring the mall to use whatever Frank can get his hands on is still a ton of fun. And the unexpected scenarios they throw at you are still pretty intense. A lot of items were rebalanced too, some are weaker and some are stronger. I like how the skateboard is much more viable than before, and even with those changes, it still feels impressively close to the original Dead Rising, but still improving and enhancing it for better playability. In other words, it almost feels like a sequel made by the original team. After all, the installments by Capcom Vancouver never truly captured how good the original Dead Rising felt, in my opinion. This is the closest a team ever got to recreating the feel of the very first game. However, there's a lot of bits that need work, I think. I'm getting performance issues throughout, and they're pretty consistent. Frame drops here and there, despite my parts meeting and towering the requirements. Also, please forgive the visuals changing between scenes. I had a hard time finding a good balance of getting the best looking visuals while keeping a solid 60 FPS and such. This happens every time I play a new RE Engine game. There's just so many graphic switches, and I'm, stupid. About halfway through my first run, I think I found the best settings for my PC, and it still messes up sometimes. There's some other little issues too. A lot of things that most people wouldn't notice as they haven't been playing the original game for nearly 2 decades. Some physics just aren't there anymore, and I can't help but notice some areas are less crowded. The physics and design are good overall and really close to the original game, but it still doesn't feel 100% right in some points, and some collision detections and behaviors are really weird. Perhaps these can be looked into and fixed in future patches. I also find the sound design to be lacking. The zombies don't make enough noise when there's so many of them. There's also missing reverbs and ambience, considering some of the cutscenes. You know, things you don't even notice the first time because that's how natural it felt. All the dialogue now sounds like they were taken out of the sound booth recordings with no effort put into atmosphere or anything really.
Well, it's in focus. And the composition's okay, I suppose.
Well, it's in focus. And the composition's okay, I suppose.
I pointed these issues out in my first impressions video and was hoping it was due to being an early build, but sadly that doesn't seem to be the case. It's not the biggest deal, I just find it odd. Again, maybe they can look into this in the future. One last thing to bring up, Infinity Mode is back, which kinda surprised me. Back in the original game, this was the ultimate challenge as healing items were limited while your health was slowly draining and hostile NPCs spawned in completely unique places. There was no way to save and you're slowly losing health, challenged to survive 7 in-game days on a single run, which led to numerous Xbox 360s overheating back in 2006. Although now you can save at any point, so that challenge isn't nearly as daunting. Still, you won't want to try this mode until you've fully leveled up Frank. Don't forget to try the ultimate challenge once you've mastered the campaign. That's pretty much all the core gameplay. Now let's go over the presentation. As I've said before, the visuals go for a mostly different angle. The original game's mall was bright, colorful, and shined with its perfect level of cleanliness. This always felt like it was meant to serve a sort of juxtaposition to the hordes of grotesque, rotting corpses that have invaded this space, while also making the mall itself easier to map out in your head. At least, I always thought so. However, as with most RE Engine games, it goes much more towards the realism angle. And I can kind of see why. The original Dead Rising certainly went towards a realism angle with some of its artistry, most notably the character models. With that said, I think they look mostly excellent in this game. Most of the cast is still gross looking, and the hotties have only gotten hotter. Yowza! Frank looks a bit weird, but I got used to it. And no, the 2006 style costume does not make a good substitute. It's actually a bit nightmarish in some of the cutscenes. However, applying the same exact realism to every detail and aspect of the environment made for some diminishing returns, I think. Yes, the drag marks on the floor and trash lying around make it a more believable setting, but does everything have to be so dark now? Everything being more realistically lit makes it harder to really gander at this unique mall and all it has to offer. I will say though, I like some of the new decorations, like how Paradise Plaza has an ocean theme now. These kinds of changes I didn't mind. And if we're to talk about contesting the original voices against newly recorded voices, I'll be honest, there is no contest. The odds are so stacked against this new cast. Some of them are certainly fine. I actually thought Jas Patrick for Frank was good.
Thanks for your help. The name's Brad.
I'm Frank West, photojournalist. And right now I'd rather have an explanation than your thanks, Brad.
He's no Rotolo, but only Rotolo can ever be Rotolo. So you go with no Rotolo, this new Joe Schmo will do just fine. Oh. He hams up a few lines here and there, but nothing egregious. I think he captures the Frank West energy better than anyone else that tried for the character, outside of TJ. But if it were up to me, I would have gotten Peter Von Gom for shits and giggles. That probably would have pissed people off though.
Alright, just take it easy, pal. That's hilarious! That's great!
Like I said before, Adam's performance is probably the closest to the original. The rest just feel like they were restrained by trying to replicate the original performances, and that'll pretty much never bring better results.
This is my store! You came to vandalize my store, huh? Not on my watch!
And some, I'm just astounded at how badly they missed the mark. Which is a shame because the cutscene directions are pretty much the same the entire way through, which was already excellent. Back when the original Dead Rising launched, Capcom liked animating the characters for the cutscenes through motion capture technology that used live actors and stunt performers. For those that might not know, this is probably why Rotolo does such a phenomenal job as Frank. He literally portrayed him, body and voice. Anyway, Capcom is still pretty good about this with their more in-house projects, and Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster takes the exact same cutscene direction with all of its wonderful angles and close-ups, but now with these amazing new graphics and models. And that's awesome, but I couldn't help but think, man, these would hit so much harder if they just used the original takes. And I decided to show a few examples to prove my point.
This is my most violent shot. Check it out. Okay, here's the deal, Frankie. You gotta go out there and take even better pictures than the ones I just showed you. You think you can handle that, huh? Yeah.
I trust them damn zombies about as far as I can throw them, but I trust people even less.
Don't shoot! Look, let's talk this over.
You can talk to my 12 gauge. Don't get no closer. I'll blow you all to kingdom come.
Hey, hang on.
God damn it, I warned you. In a situation like this, I can't afford to trust nobody. This is my store!
You came to vandalize my store, huh? Not on my watch!
Someone's been hurt. I need medicine.
Hurt! That's just what this bitch said when she came to vandalize my store! I don't take kindly to vandalism. I won't allow it! Listen to me, and listen good, partner. I don't allow vandalism in my store!
These performances already hit so hard, and the brand new models are all fantastic, so this was a perfect way to take these scenes to a whole other level. Unfortunately, the new voice performances just aren't driving that feeling home. At least, I didn't think so. But hey, I'm sure the actors involved are good in their own right. Maybe they just couldn't gel with whomever the director was. Although, it's a little suspicious how the new cutscenes are almost perfectly aligned with the old performances, even most of the lip syncing. I didn't alter the audio tracks at all. It's already lined up perfectly. I think there's a possibility that replacing all the original voice actors was a late decision. Now let's finally get to the elephant in the room. This is something that a handful of brainless zombies complained about regarding my first impressions video. I was very aware of this, but it was something I wanted to tackle when I have the full picture. Now that this is a full review video, I feel more comfortable giving my thoughts. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster would find itself in an air of controversy regarding some of the changes they made. There's the removal of the erotica tag, rewritten voice lines, Kent's photo challenge, and of course the makeover of Larry the Butcher, or Larry Chang. Now, is some of this stuff in the original game considerably tasteless? Sure, but so are trauma films, and people love those. There's always a place for this kind of weirdness and humor. I mean, Frank literally pops a nosebleed like Sanji whenever you get an erotica tag. That's funny. So, first the erotica thing. I kinda get why it was removed, because the idea of erotica tagging literal zombies and corpses that happen to have cleavage or upskirts in the photo, it's kinda weird. Like, I'ma just say it, it's necrophilic. I even argue that it's extremely creepy for Frank's character to be tagging the photos like that. I mean, he scores them, right? Who else would in this context? And by that extension, taking erotica photos of alive people is also creepy and weird. I know it's just a video game, and at the end of the day, it's not hurting anybody in this immediate context. But if I really think about it, the whole thing is just kind of off-putting. To this extent, I understand removing it. From a contextual standpoint, I think it aids the characterization of Frank West specifically, and anyone trying to peddle the idea that Frank is already portrayed as some weird pervert is a moron and probably didn't play the original game.
Probably tours.
But from a comedy standpoint, come on guys, it was funny. The tag also relates to Kent, our rival photographer. This is where their decision to exclude the tag should have made them take a step back and rethink things. Kent is a prick. That is established at breakneck speed. And this is cemented further as he shows you what he considers his best work of the day. In the original, he takes a pervy shot of some girl who clearly doesn't know he's taking this photo. He's a total creep. But then, Ken challenges you to take a pic even sexier than that, an erotica tag photo of the ages. Funny enough, the photo he showed Frank can be conveyed as a clue on how to win the photo challenge.
Now this is my sexiest shot.
If either by accident or just your own perverted curiosity, you may have already learned that it's cleavages and upskirts that get the erotica tags. Oh, and whale tails and navels. God, that is so insanely Y2K of them. Kent's photo shows Frank, and by extension us, what it takes to land one with such major points. So please, excuse me Jesse, this is important. I gotta show a scrawny douchebag I can kill with relative ease that I have the power to make him horny. Surely you understand. Like the bag of chips near Ronald's spawn point, Jesse in this sitting position sometime before the photo challenge prompt is likely intentional. I've never managed to get an erotica tag with enough points any other way before this challenge's deadline. Anyway, I'm setting this up because it's a big part of Kent's character. Someone I find pretty memorable. He's a creep. He finds sexy photos imperative to his work, probably because he's not a photojournalist like Frank, despite talking himself up. He's a tabloid paparazzi shitheel who probably sells to gossip rags, similar to how Brad tried to pin Frank.
A hot-headed, underhanded hotshot paparazzi with nothing better to do than to invade people's privacy.
And that's a great angle for Kent, as there have been real-life cases of explicit celebrity photos taken without their consent being sold to tabloids for insane amounts of coin. Kent is skeevy, egotistical, and perverted, so losing the tag and changing the rules of his side objective takes away from his personality, and that kinda sucks. What sucks even more are the new cutscenes.
Now this is my funniest shot.
Why does he still talk the same way? It doesn't work if the photo's just supposed to be funny. And of course, the photo challenge going from erotica to comedy, or outtake, makes the later cutscene even dumber. Why is he still reacting like that? He should be laughing or something. Instead, he still looks like a teenager that just found a Playboy out in the woods. The original voice actor has insane laughing takes, and this new actor isn't half bad.
I can't stop laughing.
Why did they not fully commit to the change? They might as well have in order for these scenes to at least make a little bit more sense. If you're going to change the context of these scenes, what's the point of keeping the scene's emotions the exact same? You can't have it both ways. To be frank, I think the challenge should have been more general, just give me a crazy number to aim for. So, I hope I made it clear that I don't entirely agree with this change, but I'm also not going to cry about it because I think some good came out of this. Losing that small part of Frank's character was a correct move, in my opinion. And last thoughts on this, my 16-year-old self feels vindicated. I remember the first time playing this game on a regular TV, I could barely read any of the text, so when it came to the photo challenge, I used the photo I took of the Japanese guys. Double PP action. This will surely be enough points, right? Nope. Kent just spews that ear-violating laughter out, and it crushed my fucking soul. I was so furious. What did I do wrong? I couldn't read what he wanted. But now, that same exact photo is the easiest way to clear the challenge. Hell yeah. Call it a case of overcorrection. In a sense, I agree, but I don't think it was some virtue signal of being more sensitive towards female characters or SJWs or whatever. I think they just felt the angle doesn't work that well anymore regarding how it relates to our main character. Again, if it was for the case of mandatory sensitivity, this line would probably be removed.
That's just what this bitch said when she came to vandalize my store!
This one too.
Hold your horses, babe. I'm the one asking the questions here.
Hell, Joe would have been completely wiped out. So, those are my 2 cents. It's definitely not what these grifting shitheels are claiming, I don't think. There's a few lines throughout the game that were revised, some which I felt were rewritten better this time around, and some that were not.
You are nothing but a filthy animal!
As I said before, I feel like the game as a whole would have benefited from the writers being given more creative freedom to change these scenarios and their dialogue more than they were. Clearly they were given a tight leash regarding the cutscenes and Frank's interactions with these individuals. As for Larry, I actually like how they made his Asian background more subtle and, less racist.
Zombies are no good! I can't serve my customers spoiled meat like that!
And for the record, no, he isn't white. I was wrong. He's still Chang. I also think his new wardrobe is more threatening as well, which is appropriate considering he's, in my opinion, the toughest boss in the game, and one I like to style on, and still can. Anyway, let's summarize. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is definitely worth playing considering the state of things. Between 2 zombie-slaying action games from the 7th generation, both receiving a remaster on September 2024, this is the only one that actually came out well. This Deluxe Remaster is just as available for everyone to purchase as the original in its respective platform. With that said, it's a little hard to really puff my chest against these changes, additions, and subtractions. If you want the original game, it is right there, ready to be bought and played. The Deluxe Remaster changes up the experience enough to keep veterans like me interested from beginning to end. There's going to be aspects of this where folks can only manage to complete this incredible story via the Deluxe Remaster, and that's fine. They're still going to witness what I consider a phenomenal action horror adventure with unique characters and awesome scenarios. They'll still enjoy the fruits of Willamette, the most ridiculous shopping mall ever conceived. They'll still experience the great escapades of Frank West, risking everything to cover such a harrowing story of zombies and foreign conflict. Even for such a deep Dead Rising veteran as myself, this was still a lot of fun to play through. Just like the bizarre Wii port, it feels like the original Dead Rising from another dimension. Also, I say this with no hyperbole, this is the best Dead Rising game since the original back in 2006. And that's not just because the structure is the same, it all feels much better to play than the sequels. That's important, and I think I want to support that. I want more games like this. Yeah, Deluxe Remaster is not the same game, but I have the original on me for any time I prefer that. By all means, Deluxe Remaster what you want, but having it coexist with the original in this way is something I find admirable. Thank you for watching, and what is this bear? That is not the funny yellow bear, that's the bear from Dead Rising 2. Where's my funny yellow bear? Fuck!